to call this meeting of the Joint Board to order, 5 p.m., May 8th, 2018. Are there any additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and/or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting? No? We have the minutes of March 14th.
Vote to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion about the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
So approved. All right, so is there any public comment on items not on the agenda? There'll be three. Yes, Mr. Mitchell.
I want to be respectful, but I also want to spread the line. I'm not going to take care of homeless people that are our own. This is a 5-page document of all the halfway houses in this village, okay? That are run by one man, a multi-millionaire, who has vast holdings all the way to Florida. What do these halfway houses have in common with the Bellows Police Department? One of them on Henry Street was trafficking heroin to 14-year-old high school students, 16-year-old high school students, 18-year-old high school students. If you get the police records that we never read about, okay, because there's no police logs ever printed, no press releases, you'll see that there was an exorbitant amount of police activity at most of these residences. I'm talking the state police, the Bellows police, the Walpole police, even the FBI. We have got to take care of our own. Bellows Falls can no longer be the test ground for the social experiment, importing trouble from out of state. The same holds true for a lot of these Section 8 houses. Get the police records and start looking at all the police calls to those houses. You want to reduce taxes? Cut crime. We don't need another police car. We're a village of 1 square mile. Enough is enough. If you want the document, I'll give it to you. You can look up the name of the person that's on that. And I don't want to hear that he ran a lovely place, because a person that we respected and revered in this town, who went around picking up cans, died in a gutter in a town that he wasn't even supposed to be in, because 99 Atkinson Street was not what it was cracked up to be. And I have records from staff that worked there who told me that, okay? So, if you want this, it's yours.
Yes. Yeah.
You want it?
I mean, yeah, we'll just make it
Scan it and send
available to all the trustees and select board.
Okay,
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Wright.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you,
have my
Mr. Mitchell.
vote.
Thanks, Jim.
Is there any other public comment before we move on? All right. We have the manager search, and before we enter executive session, we can have a quick, a discussion about the next steps. Right, Susan?
Yeah, we had 27 applications from across, mostly New England, but there was some from Oklahoma and Washington State, other places. We selected 10 for first round interviews, and we held those. We held 9. One pulled out, so we had 9 first round interviews last week. And after the interviews, the committee felt that there's 4 that we would want to recommend to call back for a second interview. So that's what we'll discuss, those 4 candidates and any others, actually, I suppose, that were interviewed during the executive session, to give you a little bit more sense about that. The process going forward, VLCT recommends 2 to 3 for a second round interview, where you would bring them here, and you can either do a full day interview with the person, or a half day interview where both boards are involved, and possibly other staff in the building would be involved, possibly citizens in the community, business people would be involved in meeting the potential candidates. So that process is something we'll need to discuss.
But if we have 4 or more than 4 for second round interviews, that makes it kind of an unwieldy process. So we would recommend a second round at the committee level, and then whittle that down to 2 or 3 at the final round. But
And
I mean, once we discuss the candidates, we'll have a better sense of which way we're going with that. But
yeah, it's a good summary. Is there any other comments about the, Mr. Mitchell?
I thank you all for your search, your diligent search on the manager's committee. I have to ask you, without you mentioning names, are there any local candidates right here from this area that are very qualified?
there's several local qualified candidates, and there's a couple from a little further out.
Okay, now, is there, when we elect officials, we have a meet and greet and we have an open mic session. Is the public going to get to meet any of these people before they're hired? Because we have to look at the track record of the last managers that we have gotten. They've all been gone and dismissed, summarily dismissed in 2 years' time, 2.5 years' time, and we pay dearly to get rid of them. We don't need another repeat performance of the last 10 years of managers. I hate to be so bitter about this, but our sidewalks are crumbling, our infrastructure is crumbling, crime is out of sight. We need a manager that's going to manage.
The
Thank-
exact process, I think, of how much public involvement before the process of hiring the person, we haven't discussed as something the joint boards need to discuss.
It'll depend how many of second round candidates we get to.
And it would also depend on whether the candidates at that point are still wanting to be confidential, because some of them are currently employed, and until they know they're in a stage of possibly gaining new employment, they do not want to ruffle feathers with their current employees. So there's that confidentiality element too that we have to be aware of.
Susan, I can understand that, and I respect your expertise in this matter, but the last manager that we just paid $65,000 or 2 managers ago to get rid of, I had no problem finding out everything about this guy one day after you hired him. And unequivocally, he mismanaged. The town of Ashland was still paying for that manager 2.5 years after he was gone, because the new town manager, Paul Branscombe, got a hold of me, and he told me, but I had found out everything 2 days after you hired this guy, or the town and the village hired the guy. So I'm just saying, you might feel uncomfortable about it, but the record is the record. We have paid the last 2 managers, I think, a total of $165,000. That includes the legal fees to leave this town. We cannot sustain this. The taxpayers can no longer sustain this. We need a manager who's going to have his boots on the ground, who's not going to be playing political favoritism. If somebody's not doing their job, they need to be cut. It's that simple. That's all I ask. I'm coming here for a building full of senior citizens that have been forced out of their homes because of the taxes. So please bear all that in mind when you're making this momentous decision. I beg you, please. That's all I ask.
Thank you.
Each of the candidates that we reach that final round will be have a background check done. VLCT will take care of that. The second round, VLCT will do reference checks before we go into the second round of interviews. But background checks on all will be done. The problem is often if they've come from another town, a lot of towns have confidentiality agreements with their former managers that some of this stuff cannot be told to us before. It's just the nature of the game, unfortunately. But we will do our best to vet, with the help of VLCT as well, to vet every candidate.
That's all I ask.
Thank you.
All right. I
Is there
think
any board discussion before we move into executive session?
I think we're ready to go.
All right, then. Who would like to make the motion?
I move that the select board enter executive session to discuss the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee. But the public body must make a final decision to hire or appoint in an open meeting, and it must explain the reason for its final decision, VSA 313A3.
And invite,
And I'd like to invite Rick Cohen? Cowan?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. And then trustees.
I move that the Bellows Falls trustees enter executive session to discuss the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee, but the public body must make a final decision to hire or appoint in an open meeting, and it must explain the reasons for its final decision. 1 VSA 313A3. And invite Rick Cowan.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.